Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking something that is honestly a total game changer in how we think about crisis response. We're going to look at a perfectly controlled scenario, one that strips away all the noise and leaves us with a really profound lesson on survival, economics, and human resilience. We call this scenario Two Families, One Flood. If you've ever found yourself wondering how the exact same natural disaster can leave people with wildly different futures, well, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's do a little thought experiment. I want you to put yourself right in the shoes of these two families for a second. Picture it. The horizon is darkening, the early warnings have gone out, and the river is rising fast. Both of these families live in the exact same vulnerable area, right? They've got the exact same resources, the exact same livelihoods, and they're staring down the barrel of the exact same devastating flood. The single, solitary difference in their entire experience is the timing. It's the exact moment the clock strikes when they receive help. So what actually happens when the timing of assistance is literally the only difference between triumph and tragedy? Okay, let's dive into this. Right there in the middle of this timeline, we have day 0. That's the moment the floodwaters actually hit. Now rewind a bit and look over to the left. At -5 days, so a full 5 days before a single drop of water breaches the banks, Family A receives cash assistance. But over on the flip side, we've got Family B. They don't see any assistance until plus 14 days. That is 2 full weeks after the disaster has completely torn through their lives. They face the exact same day 0 threat, but from radically different starting lines. Let's jump into the first half of this split narrative, the proactive path. This is Family A. 5 days. I really want to emphasize this number, because when you're talking about disaster management, 5 days is a lifetime. Having cash in hand a full 120 hours before a crisis actually hits, it's the ultimate catalyst. It instantly shifts a family from a state of paralyzed waiting into a state of active, strategic preparation. Now, what's really interesting about this is how that cash immediately transforms into life-saving action. Step 1, they secure that liquidity. And with that, boom, they instantly move to step 2, relocating their livestock to higher, safer ground. They're not just saving animals here, they're literally physically relocating their future livelihood out of harm's way. Then, step 3, they pack up and securely store their vital documents, stuff that protects their identity, their property rights, and their access to future recovery. And finally, step 4, they buy food and water. They secure their immediate physical survival. They aren't going to be waiting in some breadline during a massive storm, because their pantry is already stocked. And that brings us to the concluding reality for Family A. Because they got that early injection of capital, their assets are completely protected. When day 0 rolls around, sure, the water comes, but their animals are safe, their paperwork is dry, and their stomachs are full. The crisis happens around them, not to them. They've essentially transformed what could have been a total catastrophe into a manageable inconvenience, simply through the power of anticipatory action. But now, unfortunately, we have to pivot to the reactive path. We need to look at the much grimmer reality of Family B. 14 days. Just try to imagine the agonizing reality of those 2 weeks. The flood hits on day 0, completely wiping away the world they knew. And for 14 agonizing days, they have to survive the immediate chaotic aftermath entirely on their own. They're severely depleted, just waiting for the massive, slow-moving machinery of disaster assistance to finally reach them. And this brilliantly illustrates the long-term cost of waiting. That delayed aid triggers a compounding fallout across 3 major pillars of their lives. We're talking physical damage to their property, crippling financial ruin, and the literal tearing of their family's social fabric. Watch how these impacts just cascade. First, the livestock is lost, which instantly erases their income. Gone. Without that income, the severe damage to their house forces them to take on high-interest debt just to survive the month. And tethered to that massive economic anchor, the sheer instability means the kids have to miss school. A single delay in receiving help doesn't just ruin their week, it initiates massive, multi-generational setbacks. Okay, so we've seen these 2 paths on their own. Now, let's pull them together. We're going to do a thematic side-by-side synthesis to see how the exact same flood generated 2 completely alien realities. Take a look at this direct agricultural contrast. For Family A, their cow might look a little stranded hanging out on higher ground, but the key is their economic engine survives totally intact. But for Family B, they suffer total livestock loss. Their economic engine is drowned. Think about that. The flood didn't decide the fate of those animals, the timing of the capital did. So, the crucial point is the massive contrast in structural and economic outcomes. Family A completely protects their assets. They are ready to bounce back and resume normal life the second the floodwaters recede. Family B, on the other hand, incurs massive debt and structural house damage. They are facing a recovery process that's going to take years, maybe even decades. It proves, without a doubt, that empowering people to act before a crisis is exponentially more effective than trying to glue all the broken pieces back together after the fact. Let's move on and see how this builds into our core takeaway. This localized story of two families isn't just an anecdote, it's a blueprint. It reveals the undeniable advantage of anticipation. It shows us that treating a disaster like it's just some inevitable tragedy we have to clean up later is a fundamentally flawed mindset. When we shift the timeline of support from post-disaster to pre-disaster, we aren't just saving money. We are preserving human dignity, we're protecting hard-earned assets, and we are safeguarding the future. Which brings us to the ultimate question, the one we really have to ask ourselves, and the systems we rely on. Knowing what we know now, seeing this incredibly stark contrast between protecting a life beforehand versus picking up the shattered pieces afterward, will we continue to just react after the flood, or will we courageously redesign our entire approach and finally choose the advantage of anticipation? Thank you so much for exploring this vital concept with me today in this explainer. Keep asking the big questions, and I'll catch you next time.